What's going on, guys? So it's Saturday morning. I wanted to do a small project using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we're going to be creating this music player, which I'll demo for you in a second. But this is actually from my 20 web projects with vanilla JavaScript course on Udemy. So if you're interested in doing 19 more of these projects, I'll have a link with a promo code that is much less than this. I also have the GitHub repo in the description as well. So we're going to build it from scratch. We're actually going to be doing quite a bit of CSS to give it this styling, and then we'll go ahead and add the JavaScript so that we can play certain songs that are in the music folder. We'll also be able to switch the songs back and forth. The little title will pop up with a progress bar when I play it. I'll show you that in a second. And we'll be able to click on the progress bar to go to that spot in the song. So let me just give you a little demo. All right, so pretty simple. I mean, you can put your own music, obviously, and your own images for the little record thing here. But that's what we'll be building. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to leave the final project open over here in case we need it for reference. And you will need to create some initial files. We have an index.html, script.js, style.css, which are all empty. I also have a music folder with my 3 MP3s. And an images folder with my images for each song. And you can get these from the repository in the description, or of course you can use your own images in music. So let's start off with the HTML. So we'll just close that up, and let's create a boilerplate here with Emmet with exclamation enter, and in the title let's say music player, and then we're going to link in our style sheet. Let's link in our script down here, so script source, and that's going to be script.js. And we are going to be using Font Awesome for these buttons, these icons. So I'm just going to open up and go to cdnjs.com and grab that real quick. So Font Awesome, I'm going to just copy the link tag, and then we're going to put that right in the head. All right, so for the body here, we're going to have actually let's do an H1 here, say music player. And then we're going to have a music container class, which is basically just going to wrap around everything. And then in there, we want a music-info class. And what that's going to hold is the song title and the progress bar when I click play. So when I click play, you'll see it. So we want those in here. So let's have an H4. I'm going to give it an ID of title. And this is going to be populated dynamically with JavaScript with whatever song it is, but for now we'll just hard code it. So we'll say ukulele. And then we want a progress-container class, and then inside that a progress class. And that will get filled dynamically. So underneath the music info class, which ends right here, let's put the audio tag, so HTML5 audio tag. And the source is going to be music/ukulele. And let's also give this an ID so we can grab it in the JavaScript. We'll give it an ID of audio. And then underneath that, we're going to have a class of image-container. And this is where our image is going to go. And the first image we're going to load is the first song image, which is ukulele. And then for alt, we'll just say music-cover. And let's also give it an ID of cover. And I'm just going to save this and now open it up. And you can just open it right up on your file system, or you can use Live Server, which is what I'm using. So I'm going to open with Live Server, and it's going to be really ugly at first, but we'll get to the CSS in a few minutes. So under the image container is going to be the navigation. So we'll give a class of navigation. And then in here, we'll have 3 buttons. So first one is going to have an ID of prev. It's going to be the previous button. Also a class of action-btn. And then let's have an icon here. So Font Awesome class with fa-backward. So if I save that, we should see the icon. Now I'm just going to go ahead and copy this down twice. So we're going to have 3 buttons. The second one is going to be the play button. So let's change the ID to play. And then it's going to be bigger than the other 2, so we're also going to have a class of action btn big. And let's change the icon to fa-backward. play. And then this last one here is going to be next. So let's change the ID to next and change the class here to forward. Okay, so now we have our buttons. And that's it for the HTML. So pretty simple. Let's go ahead and close that up now and open up our style sheet. And in our style sheet, I'm going to just bring in the font that I'm using, which is the Lato font. So I'll just paste that in. And then with the universal selector, I'm going to just add a box sizing value of border box. And then for the body, let's set the height to 100 viewport heights. It's going to take up the entire viewport. And let's just take away any margin, so margin 0. And let's also apply our font family, which is going to be Lato sans serif. Okay, now I want to, oops, I forgot my comma. So I want to do the gradient. So that's going to go in the body as well. And we're going to set a, let's say, background image. And we're going to set that to linear gradient. And basically we want it to be the pink that goes, it starts really light. And then as it goes up, it gets a little darker and it's a straight line. So let's do 0 degrees for the first argument, and then we want the first color, which is going to be RGB 247 for red, green, and blue. And then outside of this first ending parentheses, we want the percentage. So let's do 23.8%. And if you want to experiment with this, you can. If you want to make it different colors or whatever. So then we also want the next color, which is RGB, and this is going to be 252 for red, 221, and then 221, and then the percentage on this will do 92%. So let's go back to ours, and you can see our gradient. Now I'm going to use Flexbox to center everything, so let's go ahead and display this the body as flex. Right away it's going to put it into a row, which is going horizontal, which obviously we don't want, so let's change the flex direction to column, which will put it back vertically, and then we can align everything by saying align items center, and let's also do justify content center, and that will put everything right in the middle. And then I think, yeah, that's all we want for the body. So let's go on to the music container, which we know wraps around everything, so except for the H1. So music container, for this we're gonna add a background. Let's do a background color of white, and let's give this a border radius of 15 pixels, and we'll go ahead and give it a box shadow. So let's do the offsets, so 0, 20 pixels, and then the blur 20 pixels, 0, and then the color is going to be RGBA. And I'm going to set that to 252 for red, 169, 169, and let's do 0.6 for the alpha value. So you see the little shadow. And then we're going to want everything in the container to be a flex row. So if we look here, you can see everything is in a row. The info, music info, will be positioned absolute up here. So it's going to look really ugly at first, but let's set the display to flex. Okay, so it's going to put everything side by side, and let's just add our padding and margin while we're here. So let's do 20 pixels top, 30 pixels bottom, and we're going to position this to be relative because we're going to position the info absolute inside of it. And then for the margin, let's do 100 pixels top and bottom, 0 left and right, and then just set a z-index of 10. So now let's work on the image. So first we have the container, which is image-container, and we're going to set a width of that to 110 pixels. We also want to set the position to relative because the image is going to be absolute within it. Now the image is still busting out of the container, so let's set image container image, and we're going to set a width to inherit. So that will set it to 110, and then let's set the height also to 110. And then I'm going to add a border radius because we want it to be rounded, so we're going to set that to 50%. Okay, that'll give us a rounded image. Let's set object fit to cover, and then we want to position, so it'll be positioned absolute within the container, and we'll set it from, let's do from the bottom 0 and from the left 0. And then that should be good. Yeah, that should be good. Now, I want to have a little round circle inside here, so it kind of looks like a record. So let's actually take the image container and use the after pseudo selector, so : : after. And whenever you use before and after, you have to use a content property. We're just going to set that to empty because we don't really want to put something in here. We're just using it as like a ghost element. And then let's set the background color to white or whatever you want to set it to. Let's give it a height of 20 pixels. Let's give it a width of 20 pixels. And then let's position this absolute within the container, and then set left to 50% and bottom to 50%. So if I save that, you're going to see the little white square in the middle. Let's make it rounded with border radius, and it's not quite in the middle. We'll fix that in a second. So the reason it's not right in the middle is because it's going by the edges, the bottom and left that we set. It's going by the edges of the element. So we can fix that with transform and then set translate and then -50% on the X and Y axis. So now that should push it right to the middle. All right, now we have that done. So let's do the little animation. We want it to rotate. So let's go into our image and we're going to set an animation and set it to rotate. We're going to create the animation in a second using a keyframe. And let's say 3-second duration. We want it to be linear and we want it to be infinite because we want it to keep going. So let's create that rotate keyframe. So we'll say at keyframes and set this to rotate, or name it rotate. We're going to have a from and a to. So the from is going to be transform. We're going to use transform rotate, and we want it to start at 0 degrees, and then we want it to go to. So let's go under the from and do a to, and then transform rotate, and we're going to set that to 360 degrees because we want it to spin all the way around. So if I save that, it's going to start spinning. Now I don't want it to spin just all the time. I only want it when the song plays. So for now, let's set the animation. We're going to set the animation play state to paused, and that will stop it. And then what I'll do is say down here, let's say if the music container has a play class on it, then let's take the image container image and let's set the animation play state to running. So that way, and I'll just do this, I'll show you this manually. If I go to my HTML, this top div here, the music container, if I add a class of play, it'll start playing. So we're going to add and remove that when the song plays and stops later on. Okay, so we have that done. Now let's do the navigation. So we're going to go under here, down at the bottom, and say navigation. And I'm going to set this to display flex because we want them side by side. Let's align items to the center, and let's justify the content to the center, and then I'm going to add a z-index of 1. Okay, and then let's style the action BTN, which is on all the buttons. I'm going to set the background color to white, and then let's get rid of any border. Okay, so that already looks better. Let's set the color to be lighter, so it's going to be D. Let's do DF, DB, DF. That should have a number sign. It's hexadecimal, so very light buttons. And let's increase the font size. Let's say 20 pixels. And let's set the cursor to have a pointer when we hover over it. We're going to add some padding. So 10 pixels padding. And then for margin, let's do 0, 20 pixels. All right, and then let's see. The middle one has a class of action button big, so we also want to add that. And that's just going to have a different color, which is going to be hexadecimal value CDC2D0. It's going to be a little darker, and then we're going to increase the font size a bit, so let's increase that to 30 pixels. And then I don't want to have any kind of outline. See how I click on it, it has an outline. So let's say action button in its focus state, we're going to set the outline to 0 so that we don't have that. All right, now for the music info, which right now is over here. So let's start on that. Let's say class music info, and I'm going to set a background color of RGBA, and we're going to set that to 255. So we're going to set that to white, 255, and then the alpha value will be 0.5. And then let's set a border radius of, we're going to do 15 pixels on the top right and top left. So we can do 15 pixels, and then 0 on the bottom, because we want it to look like this. See how it's rounded at the top? We want it to look like that. Now let's position this where it's supposed to go. So we'll say position absolute, and we're going to set it from the top 0, left 20 pixels. Okay, so right now it's kind of behind the image. Let's set the width. So the width of it, I'm actually going to use calc, so you can put a calculation in here. We're going to say take 100% and take away 40 pixels. And then let's set so the opacity is going to be set to 0 by default, but I want to at least see it right now, so I'm just going to comment that out for now. And then we need to position it up more. So let's say transform and then translate on the y-axis. So move it along the y-axis. That's going to be 0%. And let's see, down here, so this is if the song isn't playing. So we do want it down here if the song's not playing. When we play, then it comes up. So let's say down here, music container play. So if it's playing, then let's take the music info, and you're going to want to set the opacity to 1 so we can see it. And then transform, we want to bring it up. So we're going to use transform, translate on the y-axis. We want to bring it up, so it's going to be a negative number. So we're going to do negative 100%. And actually what I'll do is I will uncomment opacity 0. You can see it's gone. And then I'm just going to add the play class to the HTML here. All right, so we can see it now. Still doesn't look right. Did I forget? Yeah, I forgot my padding. So let's add padding. We're going to do 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. And then on the left, we're going to do 150 pixels, like that. And then we want to have a nice transition. When it does play, we want it to ease in. So let's see, I'm just going to move the padding up here, and then let's add a transition. So the transition is going to be on the transform property, because that's what moves it up and down with the translate y. And let's set the duration to 0.3 seconds. We'll give it an ease in effect. And then the opacity. We also want to set that to 0.3 and also ease in. So it'll have a nice transition when we play and stop. All right, and then let's see, for the H4, the title, I just want to remove any margin from that. So let's say music-info, and the H4, we're going to set the margin to 0. Perfect. Now we can't, obviously we can't see the progress bar or anything yet, but that looks good so far. I'm just going to stop that from spinning for now because it's making me a little dizzy. So I want to keep the play class so I can see this, but I'm just going to go to where I have the animation. So it's running right now. I'm just going to comment that out for now. So the last thing we have to do is the progress classes. So first we have the progress container. Okay, let's close that up. So in the progress container, we're going to set the background to white, and make sure you have the play class on the HTML right now so you can see this, otherwise you won't see this part. We're going to set the border, let's say border radius, we'll set that to 5 pixels, and let's set the cursor to a pointer because we're going to be able to click on it and change it to that point in the song. Let's set the margin to 10 pixels, 0, and the height to 4 pixels, and the width to 100%. So now you can see the white line here. That's the container. The progress class is going to be the actual bar, or the coloring inside. So let's do progress, and let's set the background color. We're going to set that to a hexadecimal value of FE8DAA. And let's set the border. So border radius, we're going to want to set that to the same as the container, which is 5 pixels. And the height is going to take up the 100% of its container, which is what, 4 pixels. And the width is going to be set to 0 by default, but let's just set it to 50% for now. And you can see it's filled up 50%. So basically we want the percentage to change along with where it is in the song. And we want to add a transition onto the width so that it just kind of, goes up with the song, just plays up with the song. So the transition on the width, we'll do 0.1 seconds and set that to linear. All right, now the width is going to be set to 0 by default, which is going to make it empty. So that's it for the CSS. Now I'm going to just remove the play class, and we're going to no longer see the title in the progress bar. So now we can go to our JavaScript. This is the fun part. We can close up our style sheet for now. And let's bring in everything we need to. So first we have our music container. And we're going to use document.querySelector. And that has a class, so let's do .music-container. And then we're going to bring in a bunch of stuff, so I'm just going to copy all this down. After music container, we want to bring in our buttons. So we have a play. Actually, that's going to be an ID. So we have an ID of play, we have an ID of prev, and we have an ID of next. So let's go over here and let's say this is our play BTN. This is the prev BTN, and then this is the next BTN. So those are our buttons. Next we want our audio tag. So let's say audio, and that has an ID audio. Just make sure you have the the number signs for the IDs and the dots for classes. Then our progress, so let's say progress, and that's going to be a class of progress. We also want to bring our progress container, class of progress container, and we'll change this to progress container. And then two more things we want to bring in. We want the title, so it's the song title, which is an ID. So an ID of title, and then finally we have the image, which is cover, so it has an ID of cover. So let's say ID cover, and that should be all the stuff we need to bring in. Now our song titles we're going to have in an array, so these will be song titles, and these should match the name of the song that you have in the music folder. So let's say const songs and set that to an array. So the first one is called Hey, and then we have a song called Summer, and then we have a song called Ukulele. Okay, so that's our song titles. Then we need a way to keep track of the songs. So here, let's create, let's say, song index, and we're going to set this to 2 by default. So basically, if we look at our array, this is 0, 1, 2. So we're setting ukulele to the default. Now we need to initially load our songs. So let's say initially load song into the document object model. So we'll call a function called load song, which we'll create in a second, and that's going to take in the songs array with whatever the song index is. All right, and then we'll create that function. So this is going to update the song details. So let's say function load song, and that's going to take in a song. And 3 things we want to update here: the title, the actual audio source, and the image source. So let's take the title and say inner text, and we'll set that to song. And then let's take the audio, so the audio tag, and let's set the source to backticks and then music, because that's the name of our folder, whatever the song name is, and then .mp3. So your songs do have to be MP3s if you're going to use this exact script. And then your images should be JPEGs. And this will be in the images folder, and we want to set the cover source to this. Okay, so just make sure that your song names and your image names match as well. So that will load song. Now we might as well just save this for now. Nothing changed over here because I have the ukulele image by default, but if you go and you switch the song to 1, which is Summer, it should change the image. It should also change the title, which right now we can't see, but if I go to my HTML and I add the play class, because then we'll be able to see it, you'll see the title of Summer. If I change this to 0, you'll see Hey, but I'm going to set it to 2 by default, and then just remove that play class. All right, so let's continue on here. Next, we want the play button. I want to click this, add the play class. Also, I want this to change into a pause button when it's playing. And then if we click it again, then it should be able to pause and play, toggle that. So let's go down here at the bottom, and this is where we're going to have all of our event listeners. So first one is going to be for the play button. So let's say play btn.add event listener, and we want to listen for a click. When that happens, we're going to run a function, and we want to see if the song is playing or not, because that's going to decide whether we're going to play or pause. So what we can do is just say const is playing, and set that to the music container.class list, and we want to see if that class list contains the class of play. Then we know it's playing. And then if it is playing, so if it is playing, then we want to pause the song. So we'll have a function called pause song. Else, then we want to play the song. So we'll have a function called play song. And then we'll go and create those up here under load song. Say function play song, and we'll just create function pause song. All right, now play song, we're going to want to add the play class. So let's take our music container and let's say class list, and we want to add a class of play. All right, so just doing that, if I go over here and click play, you can see that this then shows. Now we want this to spin as well. Remember, I commented that out. I think hopefully I got that on camera when I commented it out, because I did have to redo certain parts of the video, but I had commented out the this right here. So animation play state running. So I'm going to just uncomment that. And now when we click play, that's going to start. Now we can't pause it yet, but if I reload, you can see it stops. I click it, it plays. Now in addition to that, to playing, we want to change the icon. So let's take the play button, and then we want to call query selector on that, and I'm going to choose the I tag with the class of FAS, and I want to say classlist.add because I want to add the class of play. So I'm sorry, not add, we want to remove the class of play because it's playing now. So let's say remove fa-play, and let's copy that down, and then we want to add the class of fa-pause. So we want to change remove to add. So let's save that, and if I play, now you can see it turns into pause. If I click it again, so it is playing, if I click it again, it's calling this now pause song, right? Because of what we did down here. So let's do pause song, and to do that, we're going to basically just do the exact opposite that we did here. I'm going to copy this. We're going to remove the play class. We're going to add, or let's do, add play and then remove pause. So now if I play, it starts playing. Now notice the audio isn't playing just yet. That's because we haven't called audio.play, which maybe I should have done already, but everything else is working. So the audio tag, the HTML5 audio tag, has its own set of methods, has its own API. So play, if we go into play song and we take our audio tag and we click play, that will play it. And then down here in pause song, we're going to say audio.pause. So now let's save this, let's try it out. So now I can play and pause the song. Next, let's do the previous and next buttons. So again, we're going to need event listeners for that. So down here, let's say change song events. And we're going to take the previous button and add an event listener onto that. So we want to listen for a click. And when that happens, we're going to call prev song, which is going to be a function we create. And then we're going to do the same thing with next. This will call next song, and this is going to be on the next button. So now we want to create those functions. So we'll go up here. Let's go under pause song and say function prev song. And let's create function next song. All right. So let's start off with previous song. So we have our song index right up above. Song index is just a number. It's set to 2 by default. When we click previous song, we're going to want to decrease that by 1. So we can say song index minus minus. And then we want to check to see if the song index is less than 0, because if it is, then we want it to loop back. We want it to loop to the beginning, right? Or so if we click previous and we're at the first song and we click it again, we want it to go to the other side, to the end song. So if it's less than 0, then let's set the song index. We're going to set it to the last song, right? So we can do that by getting songs.length. That'll give us the complete number, but we want to minus 1 from that. So that'll put it to the last song. Then we just want to load the song and pass in here songs and then whatever the song index, which is going to be just 1 less than whatever we're on. Okay, then we want to play the song. So let's try that. I'm going to play. Now, Hey is the first song, so if I click back, it should go to Ukulele again. So I can just scroll through. Now, for the next song, that's going to be pretty similar. Actually, I can just copy this. And inside next song, we just want to then increment the song index number by 1. And we're going to also want to check to see if we're at the end. So we can do that by saying if the song index is greater than the songs dot length minus 1, then we know we're at the end. So then we want to set the song index to the first song, which is 0, because it's just an array. And then this is going to be the same. So let's save. Let's try it out. Okay, so now we have our navigation is working. And then the last thing that we want to do is the progress bar, because you can see it's not doing anything. So we want that to move up with the playing of the song. So to do that, let's go down here to our event listeners, and we're going to take our audio and add an event listener onto that. And with the HTML5 audio tag with the API, there's an event called time update. So basically, it'll just, every time, you know, the song, when the song is playing, this will constantly be called. And basically what I want to do on time update is call a function called update progress. So we're going to go up here, let's go under next song, and let's say function update progress. All right, now update progress is going to take in an event object, and on this event object we can get the duration of the song and the current time. In fact, what I'll do is let's console log here e dot, and then it's on source element. Let me just save that and then open up my console here. Source element is just going to give me the audio tag. Let's look at the current spot in the song, which is the current time. All right, so it's at 0 now. Watch when I play. So it's just going to keep updating it where it is in the song. I can also get the total duration like this. So it gives me the total duration, which obviously doesn't change. So what I'm going to do here is, let's see, from the source element, let's deconstruct those two values. So we'll say const and some curly braces, and we want to pull out from that the duration, and we also want the current time. So we're going to pull those out of that, and then let's say const progress %, and that's going to be set to, I'm going to do a little bit of math here. So we want to take the current time, right, and then we want to divide that by the duration, and then we want to multiply that by 100, because that gives us a decimal. So we want to multiply that by 100, and then we simply want to set the width of the progress to whatever this progress % is. So we can do that by taking progress and then setting the progress.style.width, and we want to set that equal to, let's put some backticks in here, and we want our progress %, and then just add a % sign outside of the curly braces, not a money sign, a % sign. All right, so let's save that, and now when I play, you can see that, ignore this favicon thing, but you can see that the progress bar is filling up. Okay, so another thing we want to be able to do, and it pauses. Notice it pauses and the progress bar stays. It doesn't restart. Now another thing I want to do is be able to click anywhere on the progress bar and have it go to that point in the song. So what we can do is down here we'll say progress, let's say progress container, and we want to add an event listener, and we want to listen for a click, and then we're going to call set progress. Okay, so when we click anywhere on the progress container, so anywhere in the white part, it's going to call this set progress. So let's put this right up here. So set progress, and we're going to pass in an event object here. And I want to get the width, so let's say const width, and we can use this dot client width. Actually, let's console log that. Whoops, what am I doing? Console log width. So if I click, I'm just pausing it so you can hear me. When I click on it, it's going to show me the width, which is 216 total. All right, now we want to get where we click on it on the x-axis. So let's say const click x and set that to E, and we can get that from offset x. So let's console log click x and watch where I click. So it will show me exactly where I'm clicking. Now the next thing we want to get is the complete duration, so we can get that with const, or we're going to set that with const duration, and we can get that with the audio element and then duration. So we want to get the audio duration, and then let's set audio, and we can set the current time, right? So we were getting it before, but we can actually set it as well and put it to where we want. And we're going to set it by taking wherever we click, so click X, and dividing that by the width, and then multiplying those by the duration. And that should set the current time to wherever we click. So let's try it out. We'll save. I'm just going to close this up. So now you can click and it'll go wherever you want. Now the very last thing we want to do is when the song ends, we want it to go to the next one, because right now, let me just show you. So it's just going to do this, and obviously we don't want that. We want it to keep going. So the audio API gives us an event. So let's say add event listener, and we can listen for ended. And when ended fires off, then we just simply want to call next song, and that should do it. We already have next song created right here. So let's try it out. And that's it. So we now have a little music player. So I know this isn't like the most advanced thing in the world. You know, you have to use MP3s and JPEGs, and you have to make sure you name the songs correctly. You could add on to this. You could make it so you had a database where you have songs and you load them from there. I mean, there's a lot more you can do with this. This is just a nice little project to kind of sharpen both your CSS and your JavaScript skills, and also learn about the HTML5 Audio API. All right, so that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you like this project, I have 19 more in the JavaScript 20 project course. I also have a 50 projects and 50-day course with projects that are a little smaller. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.